Hey, what's up, Steelers Nation? I'm Tyler Feldman. The Steelers now 0-7 on the road in divisional Thursday night football games. I do not believe what I saw tonight, losing to the Bengals 33-31. Wayne, can you believe this?
Forget the five-way chili. Just go to one person on offense named Jamar Chase.
Unbelievable. Let's get this show rocking.
Wave those terrible towels. It's the Steelers Squad. Everything Pittsburgh Steelers every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Steel City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the steel curtain to the next generation, the Steelers Squad Show starts now.
Yes, it does. This is the Steelers Squad Show right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, I'm your host, Tyler Feldman. He's Wayne Gandy, 15-year NFL veteran, played for the Steelers a bit. We're talking all things Thursday night football, Wayne. Full recap, instant reaction, expert analysis, and so much more. And we'll have a lot to talk about, Wayne, because this Steelers team, no Joe Burrow, no Trey Hendrickson. Steelers should have just walked into Cincinnati, and you said it. It felt like I've just eaten 5 bowls of Skyline chili. I'm about to throw up after what I just saw. A 33-31 loss. Wayne, initial thoughts, because this just goes to show that it's anyone's game in the NFL this season, but also the Steelers, a little bit of fool's gold. Like, let's slow the roll, because this Steelers team, especially on the defensive side, clearly has a lot of work left to do.
It's disbelief in the way. It's more disbelief in how they allowed Jamar Chase and Joe Flacco to take over a game, only being a duo for 10 days. And it just is the caliber of secondary players that we have in Pittsburgh. I was waiting on a PI or a personal something, just go up there and grab him. I'll take the 15-yard penalty. I mean, one man, 16 catches in a game. It's just disbelief that Joey Porter, no matter Darius Slay, it didn't matter who they put in there. Chuck, it didn't matter. It just was. I'm still in disbelief. No pass rush. It was 2 or 3 minutes left in the game before we finally got a defender to even grab on his jersey. So just can't understand how the defense didn't come to play in that way.
Jamar Chase targeted 23 times, 16 catches, 161 yards, a touchdown. T. Higgins, 6 grabs, 96 yards, a touchdown. Jamar Chase, those 23 targets, the most of any wideout in the NFL this season. And you bring in a guy like Jalen Ramsey to go head-to-head against a guy like Jamar Chase, and Chase made him look like the little brother out there tonight, because all the space, the separation, the hand fighting, it just wasn't working. Chase made him look silly, and that secondary got shredded. I think someone said, yeah, right here, Eugene Jones saying Jalen Ramsey is Swiss cheese. Yeah, a lot of holes in that secondary tonight, and we'll talk about it. But if you were to tell me, Wayne, that Jaylen Warren would have 16 carries for 127 rushing yards, that all 3 of the big tight ends on this Pittsburgh Steelers team, you had Pat Freiermuth with 2 touchdowns in this one, 111 receiving yards. You had Jonnu Smith with a touchdown. You had Darnell Washington with a touchdown. I would have said the Steelers would win this game. Instead, you let Joe Flacco walk in wearing a all-white uniform, looking all slick out there at 40 years old, the 4th oldest active NFL player in the league this season, behind the 1st oldest active, and that's Aaron Rodgers on the other side. He throws for 342 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, just the 4th time in Joe Flacco's career that he's eclipsed 300 passing yards against the Steelers. But here's what I want to talk about, Wayne, because you look at what Joe Flacco can do on short time learning an offense. He knows Pittsburgh's defense. And what shocked me and doesn't surprise me all at the same time is Joe Flacco, he knows what's buried in Pittsburgh because he came out and did exactly what he did last year when he led the Colts to a win over the Steelers. And instead of the Steelers coaching staff adjusting, what was wrong with the secondary, whether they were playing that zone coverage or man, it just seemed like Joe Flacco had all day, and then the separation was just astronomical. It was just disgusting.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I felt like the secondary had some fear. You almost thought that it was in reverse, like Cincinnati's secondary would be it's a young secondary that they're trying to put together, but to have 13 and 10-year and top talent, it just seemed like they were in real dire fear of what these two receivers could do. I mean, this is not like these were always big 50, 60-yard passes. This was a routine. I mean, they were running a variety of routes against this secondary. And then as the game went on, they couldn't even tackle the guy. At first, they were at least coming up and making the tackle. And then it started just being a true damn broke. And they had no answers to anything. And to me, it was lack of pass rush and then just too much space. But it was definitely, going back to Jalen Ramsey, there's a part of his game now you have to start, and we've seen it this whole season, to where he still has that fire. He still has the physicalness. You almost have to play him more like a safety. Whenever he gets matched up in the slot, teams take advantage of him a lot, and he just does not have that gear to keep up with these speedy receivers once they get behind him.
The Steelers, their 3-game winning streak is snapped. The Bengals snapped their 4-game losing skid, and we will skid right over and bring Christopher Carter into the fold. Chris, we're looking for answers. Wayne and I are just in disbelief. We're frustrated. We feel like we've both eaten 5 plates of Skyline chili and want to puke. Your thoughts this early on, your instant reaction as to what happened tonight and why the Steelers lost this football game.
Well, I just got off of doing Locked On NFL with Peter Bukowski, and I think the biggest thing here is that this team was designed and built, or this defense was rather designed and built on their corners being able to win in man coverage, and they just weren't. And they were put in positions to win. That last pass, Jalen Ramsey, who he had good coverage on T. Higgins at the end of the game. He was man press, man him up the whole way. T. Higgins just made the better play, and that I think is the concern for the Steelers moving forward is, if you go to those man coverage looks, can you win? And they won a couple times here and there in this game. You thought that the first 3rd down stop of the game when Juan Thornhill anticipated the shallow cross, I thought that was like really good sign. Hey, that maybe they got it figured out. But then as the game went on, there were some plays where you have to switch in zone. You can't live in man every single play. Otherwise, that's the main thing like Tom Brady and veteran quarterbacks do pick at historically. But when they were in man coverage, they were just losing. And sometimes it wasn't all their fault. The first touchdown was clearly a Jamar Chase, just Jalen Ramsey, I'm going to shove you off of me. I'm going to go up and get this football, and you're going to get called for it. I thought Joey Porter Jr. had a couple penalties that I thought were ticky-tack. But then there were just plays where they were just flat out beat. And those were some of the biggest plays of the game. You have to be able to hold up in situations like that, because if you do, then it puts the Bengals in a rougher situation. Sometimes games do come down to that big point right there, is a certain matchup that you designed to win and that you didn't win. I think the question for the Steelers is, moving forward, do they look at this and they say, hey, they had a bad night. We're not going to change up a whole lot. We're gonna say at most games they're going to come out and win most of those matchups because they have won most of those matchups this year. Or do they say, the next time we face a team with these types of receivers, we have to come up with a different plan? I don't know because everyone says a better plan. Better is an extremely random subjective, because better is not always just a thing that you can just imagine up. You have to figure out some things. You have to take it's a guessing game. You have to do a process of elimination and figure out what better is. But I think that it's going to be a big question. Do they do something completely different the next time, or do they say, hey, you're going to have a better game and go out there and win in man coverage? But I think, to me, that was the story of this game. When the Steelers went man, they were getting smoked.
I'm not mad. I'm disappointed because, as Wayne has said time and time again, this Steelers team is what they are. And they're not really anything that electric. They could make a deep run because the NFL is just this wide open this season. There's not really one dominant team, it seems like, throughout the league. But tonight is just a game that you should have won. I mean, 2 weeks ago we were talking, I said they should have looked ahead to this game. They beat the Browns. They should have been 1-0 there, and they should have been 2-0 by beating the Bengals, a banged-up Bengals team. Wayne, with regard to the secondary, how do you fix that? It's just man-to-man. It's just they got beat. Like, you are not as good as the wide receivers they faced tonight. So I don't know how you move on. I guess you're fortunate that you don't have to face two guys like Higgins and Chase week in and week out moving forward.
Well, you got veteran guys. So this is a professional league, and this is your job. So it's a lot of reflection that you take upon yourself. As Chris alluded to, some of this was just, these guys are getting killed out here. So they were looking like first-year players in some of those coverages, and it's like they were afraid of Jamar Chase. They were just kind of like standing there, feet in cement, and then hoping to come up to make the tackle. And then he started breaking a couple of tackles. But when you add their lack of coverage with literally no pass rush in this game, Orlando Brown on the one side and Mims, I think out of Georgia, over there at the right tackle. I mean, it wasn't just a whole bunch of chipping and tight ends thing in there. They did that early, but those two tackles handled themselves. And I don't know that Benton or even, Cam Hayward got in there late that one time. But for most of the game, the defensive front, the 1 or 2 pressures they got from blitzing. But when they went just, okay, my front 4 or 5 are going to rush, there was no pressure on Joe Flacco. And you can't have both phases out of sync. You can't cover and can't pass rush. And it just got out of hand there for a while, where Jamar Chase is just it was amazing. And once they was in that groove, to go to a one target 23 times, that doesn't even sound. You threw.
You're not scared at all.
Most times you only throw the ball about 30, 32 times in a game. You went to one guy 23 times, and he brought in 16 of them. He dropped maybe 3 that he should have caught in those situations. So it's a lot of self-reflecting going on here on a couple of days they have off with this long weekend that, playing on Thursday brings.
10 days away from facing the Packers on Sunday night next week. So that'll be a big game. Hey, Jamar Chase, they call that the Jordan Special, 23 targets. Chase Brown on the ground, over 100 rushing yards. So, yeah, it wasn't working, Chris. I mean, this defense as a whole, you're giving up 30-plus to a Burles-led Bengals offense. Come on. I mean, come on, Chris.
No, yeah, it's bad. You want to be better than that. I think the one thing with the run defense is that you can say, okay, this team never runs the ball. So you didn't have a lot to base what to expect them to run the ball against. I can see that. But the passing game, you absolutely knew it was going to. You faced you faced Joe Flacco before. You faced Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, granted, never together. And they do have the benefit of that. That is something that they can say, okay, we didn't know exactly what they would do. But you had enough ideas. And there needed to be more counters to that. Now, Wayne, to your point about the pass rush, I will say, yeah, they didn't get home. But I'm not one that's here to say it's all the refs' fault. But my gosh, the amount of just when TJ Watt's just about to get there and he gets pulled backwards away from saving Joe Flacco right before the right amount of play. Same thing happened to Cam Hayward several times. Same thing happened to Alex Highsmith quite a few times. I think Derek Harmon got help. There was one on one of their better runs, Keanu Benton, right there, and he just gets pulled by his whole shoulder pads. I thought those were some really rough moments where I'm just like, man. And then when you see Zach Frazier get called for a hold and then Broderick Jones get called for a hold, and you're like, where's it the other way around? I feel like that's a lot of what happened here. And this isn't the first time either. Years ago, when it was Kenny Pickett's first year, they played the Bengals once. And when they lost to the Bengals, I mean, TJ Watt was just held up the entire game and the Bengals were laughing about it. And then when they came back around, and the Steelers were able. They got called for 1 or 2 holes, and the Steelers were like, "Oh yeah, you can't get away with it that time." The Steelers got after it. I think this is very much a Bengals strategy: is we're going to hold and hope they don't call it, and that's our offense. And if they get called for it, oh, well, we'll go with it. And tonight, they weren't getting called for. They also weren't getting called for a lot of offensive pass interference. I think that played a lot into it. But if you're the Steelers, this is where you're supposed to be better. This is where you're supposed to overcome those moments, because we've seen it a few times this year. There were a lot of bad calls in the Vikings games. You overcame those. There were a lot of bad calls. I think, what was the game before that? In the Patriots game, you overcame them. This was a week where you're supposed to say, hey, it don't matter what guys and what stripes make what decisions. You have to come out and win. And I thought that there were several plays where, again, Ramsey against Higgins at the end of the game, one-on-one, you need your star cornerback to win in that spot.
I mean, I was laughing at that play because that's how the game went. It's like, okay.
And again, this is not saying that Ramsey stinks for that, because that was good coverage. It's just a better throw and catch. And sometimes that's just what it is. The big thing for the Steelers here is these losses happen. I mean, you look at like all the good teams. There's no juggernaut. Everyone's saying, "Oh, this team's is cooked now." Every good team in the NFL has lost a bad game at some point this year. Like everyone, like you can look at the Chiefs, you can look at the Ravens that they're 1-5, you can look at the Bills who are on a 2-game losing streak. That's not the problem, is that they lost one game. What will be a problem is if someone looks at this tape and says, hey, we have 2 really good wide receivers too. Let's test this. And then they still can't win. That will be the problem that haunts the Steelers for the rest of the year. And to me, if I'm any other opponent with a really good receiving core, that is what I'm circling on this schedule and saying we gotta do these things, because those guys can't run with us if we do our best.
What was better in the last 7 days? The grass at Acrisure Stadium or the Steelers' defense tonight against the Cincinnati Bengals? Because, quite frankly, I'm not sure. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, 4 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. We're talking a lot about the defense here in the first segment, but second segment, we'll dive into the offensive problems and maybe why those turnovers didn't help things tonight in Cincinnati. We'll also go to Wayne's World and get the thoughts from the 15-year NFL veteran, hear what he thinks is one of the main reasons why the Steelers team just couldn't pull out the dub tonight. That's coming up next right here on the Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. But first, if you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and same contacts. I love that you get the same quality service you had before, but for a fraction of the price. Plus, the setup is super easy. You keep your number, and then you're running in just minutes. So are you ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow down above 35 gigabytes on the unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Back on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Christopher Carter, Wayne Gandy. I'm Tyler Feldman. Thanks for spending your Thursday night, a late Thursday night football. The Steelers now 0-7 on the road in divisional Thursday night football games, falling to the Cincinnati Bengals 33-31. Guys, we talked about the defensive problems quite a bit there in that first segment. Second segment, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, because he kept the Steelers in this football game, but those 2 interceptions in the first half. Chris, I'll start with you, especially that deep ball. Maybe it was forced, but it certainly didn't help. I'm not pinning that as the reason why, but those plays certainly add up in these divisional matchups. What's your take on those offensive turnovers tonight?
I mean, you look at that, the turnover count, 2-0. That's a big part of what won and lost this game. It's when the Steelers, when they win the turnover battle, they win their football games. The 2 of the games that they've lost their turnover battles. You think back to the Seahawks. I think that when you look at what Aaron Rodgers did, the second interception, not his fault. He put that on a money to DK Metcalf. Just a really good play by the cornerback in that situation. You can't be too mad at that one. The first one, I think he saw something initially, waited on it a little too long, and then heaved it, and it just wasn't there. That was one he should have probably checked down. But I'm not going to ding him too much for that because, Aaron Rodgers made a lot of very smart decisions in this football game, and there's some of them that aren't going to work, and that's fine. You live with that. It'd be different if there were several plays, there were like if all his touchdowns in this game came when they were 2 scores down. But there were several times he put him back in the lead. He gave him a lead. He tied the game up. He was doing all the things that I think you wanted to do if you were the Steelers and you're saying, hey, we're going to trust you to make those decisions. I'm not digging him too much for the turnovers. In fact, I think he was spectacular. I mean, when you throw 4 touchdowns and all 4 to your tight ends, I know like Arthur Smith's out there going like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've always wanted. But I can't ding Aaron Rodgers too much for that. I thought he saw through the Bengals defense a lot of times in this game. And again, the offensive line I thought also deserved credit. Jaylen Warren, 127 yards on the ground, 7.9 yards per carry. And then all those possessions where Aaron Rodgers was just able to run, spin around, go this way, go that way, and there's that guy. It didn't matter who you lined up against the Steelers. I know some people are going to say, well, there wasn't any Trey Hendrickson. Well, it didn't matter who you lined up against the Steelers last year. There were a lot of times that me, Tyler, and Wayne would get pressure on Mitch Trubisky or Russell Wilson last year. I think that they deserve credit for that. And so if you're looking at the offense, I think they continue to trend upwards. I think it's still the biggest problem for this team right now is it's built on its defense, and that defense just gave up 33 points to Joe Flacco in his 10 days with the Bengals, and it's supposed to be so much better with their pass defense.
Wayne, that offensive line, Rodgers not sacked once, had the protection, had time to throw, and that was really nice to see. Jaylen Warren running the ball well, 7.9 yards a rush. What did you like as we head into Wayne's world about the offensive side of the ball in this one?
I loved everything offensively tonight. The only negative play I had was the flea flicker. I had no clue early in the game what we were doing with that play.
That wasn't supposed to happen. They said they showed it. It was that Aaron Rodgers checked out of it, and Jaylen Warren just did it anyways. And Aaron's like, "Why? We said no." And so that was a bizarre.
Yeah, and that explains that. I had no idea what they were doing there, but that one interception that Chris is talking about deep down the field, that was Aaron Rodgers just being a veteran quarterback, looking at it. It's a long punt if it don't turn out right. Sometimes quarterback, they throw the dice against the wall, but everything else was excellent about this game. The one thing that we continue to talk about, Spencer Anderson, the tight ends, the explosion they're starting to have, because the run game is now part of it. So you don't have any keys. Are they running? Are they coming off the ball? Are they going into the pass? And the O-line, Chris hit it. I was going to talk about it. Sometimes when you lose a star player like a Trey Hendrickson, your approach lowers. Somebody comes in the locker room and tells you a certain guy's not playing, you lose your intensity. The O-line did not do that tonight. They played and they treated that Cincinnati front just like they were supposed to. They were physical with them. It was gaping holes, no pressure at all, really in the game. Even on the scrambles, most of that was just there was nobody open and he went and bought some more time. So as much as we beat them up in the first couple of games, you got to give them their roses when they go out and everybody gets a check. As long as everybody gets a check, then it's a football game. It's an NFL game, and that's what they played tonight. And offensively, I didn't see really anything wrong.
If you were to tell me the Steelers would score 30-plus points and lose against this Bengals defense, I would have laughed, but here we are. I do want to talk about Pat Freiermuth because I feel like a lot of the conversation over the past couple weeks, you look at the rest of that tight ends room, Darnell Washington getting a ton of attention. You have Hayward getting a ton of attention. You have Jonnu Smith getting a ton of attention. And Pat hadn't scored a touchdown all season. For some reason, he just knows how to get it done against the Bengals. But 2 touchdowns, over 100 receiving yards, Chris, how does this shake out the tight ends room and where the offense goes from here?
I think it just further shows that the Steelers know what they're doing with what they're trying to build on offense, and maybe the second guessing should chill out from the peanut gallery who says they should trade Pat Freiermuth for this random guy that you've never seen him before. I think that Pat Freiermuth, and I said this for a while, like a lot of people wanted to trade Pat Freiermuth, and look, there were a couple plays where like he wasn't where Aaron Rodgers wanted him, and you saw the frustration there, but third and 18 inside the red zone. And he finds a way to get open against the zone, and Aaron Rodgers hits him for the big play. And then just that play where he sticks with the play, Aaron Rodgers gets it to him, and then it's a foot race and he wins it. Pat Freiermuth, I think, shows you, like, look, he is a receiving threat. You just got to get the ball to him. But it's another reminder that, let's say that in this game, that wasn't Pat Freiermuth. Let's say that was Jalen Waddle. Do you feel any different if the person who made the plays that Pat Freiermuth in this game is a receiver? You wouldn't. You'd still be mad that they lost this game. I don't think that that's the problem that people make it out to be. Like, for example, I was watching the Amazon Prime Vision version of the game, which is really good. I suggest you guys check it out. It's basically like an overhead view, so you see the whole field instead of just the line of scrimmage. And it really gave you a sense of it. But like, at one point they go like, oh, this is the problem when you only have tight ends. You can't really come back when you're down by 10 points. And then they're able to do it. And so I don't think that this having a wide receiver thing is the problem that people make it out to be. I do think, however, there might need to be a trade to help the defense, which is crazy. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, they're the most expensive defense, but clearly they need one more person in the secondary to help them eliminate somebody. And maybe it's not just a man coverage thing. Maybe it's the safety position, though Chuck Clark made a few good plays in this game. Maybe they do miss Minkah Fitzpatrick back there and having that supreme presence keep everything bottled up with good cornerback play. And maybe that's part of it. Something needs to be there. But to me, like, I'm looking at this offense and the progression of this offense, the better this offensive line gets, the more in sync Aaron Rodgers gets with these guys. I'm not too mad at them right now. I am very concerned about that defense.
All right, let's talk about the defense. Wayne, do you want to dive into the offense a little bit more, or you want to go defense here?
Well, I wanted to ask Chris, is Jabril Peppers that guy? Is it he that guy that maybe something can be put into that defensive secondary?
I thought he could be, but then he was in for a little bit, and then he hasn't been getting the reps. And to me, when you're not getting the reps, that shows that you're not doing stuff right in practice. And so, I'm not allowed to say what I see in practice. Sorry, Bert Lawton. Please don't shoot me. So I'm not breaking the rules. But I'm not allowed to say what happens in practice. But if a player isn't getting the reps, most likely it's because of something that's going on there, the preparation. There's something that the coach is like, hey, this guy's getting it done at this point. That's what's happening there. So I think if Jabril Peppers was going to be that guy, he'd be getting more chances out there. And to be honest, I got to look at the tape entirely and review things. But like, I thought Chuck Clark held his own. Like, I mean, that breakup that he had on Jamar Chase on that slant over the middle, there were a couple big hits that he had. Those are cool. But I still think the big thing that they miss with a Minkah Fitzpatrick presence is when he was back there, he was like, hey, you're not getting past me. You may get some underneath stuff. You may get some stuff here and there, but you're not getting past me. And maybe that's what they're missing right now. Like, Juan Thornhill is a decent safety. Minkah Fitzpatrick, even when he wasn't getting turnovers, was an elite safety. Nobody completed a pass on him 25 yards or further last year. And I think that's maybe that's something the Steelers would like to have, because when you have that guy back there, it allows you to be more aggressive with other things. And getting Jalen Ramsey has certainly helped in the most part for the Steelers, Wayne. But I think that maybe the trade-off is what's hurting them right now, is that they really need two guys like that back there.
So, Chris, are you saying that the Steelers need to make a move defensively to bring in a guy who can fulfill what they're not getting on the defensive side of the ball? Because, hey, they gave up a lot of points to the Jets. I'm not saying this defense still is trying to figure things out. So who's a guy you bring in, and then what would you be willing to give up to assist this defense and take it to that next level?
I mean, it sounds crazy, but I'd call up the Dolphins and be like, look, you guys stink. What would it take to get Minkah back off your hands? Because honestly, you put him in with this defense, and he's playing back there, I think there's a lot more aggressive things that they can do. And you have two chess pieces in him and Ramsey that make a big difference. Like, because again, you make some trade and you get, Chris Olave and that. Does that change a whole lot of this game? Do they win this game? If Chris Olave is on this roster? No, I think they still get around 31 points. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. If you throw him in the Jets game, they still they probably do the same thing there. I think the big thing is they look at this, and I also want to push this button as well. This was the Thursday night road AFC North game that we said that they never win, and they didn't win it. And they were closer to win it than maybe they have been a lot of times. And again, that's not an excuse, but it's also maybe let's see how they bounce back next week with 10 days rest. They play the Packers, a team that's a Super Bowl favorite for a lot of people. If they come back and they beat the Packers and they advance to 5-2, and then, are we still going to be talking about what the additions they need to make on defense or on offense? I don't know. But I am saying right now, by looking at this performance, if I assess this on film as a coach and I say, we cannot run man coverage the way we thought we could, that would cause me to say, Omar, we need to do something, because the plan we had in place, we can still do shells of it. Like the blitz packages are awesome. I think there's certain things to be aggressive you can be awesome with. But you know what? We do need another piece back there. And, it's supposedly the Dolphins were willing to just give Jalen Ramsey for a pick, but the Steelers wanted to protect their picks and gave over Minkah Fitzpatrick so they didn't lose anything there. But maybe that's the piece that they need right now to complete the secondary and make it a better unit.
Well, guys, everything is fine. Everything is fine. No one's overreacting. Everything is fine. Steelers are done. It will be Cincy and the Ravens for the North. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Hey, we're going to be talking more about this 33-31 loss in Cincinnati when we come back right here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Stay with us. We still got 30 minutes to go, and there's a lot more to talk about. What is wrong with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and where do they go from here? That's next right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But first, nobody likes paying rent. But if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent, guys. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love that with Built, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something you already have to pay. Whether I'm grabbing food at my favorite restaurant or heading to the gym, I'm still earning rewards. Plus, Built has made every day feel like a more rewarding day, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. So turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so they know we sent you. 30 more minutes to go here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Post-game reaction after the Steelers were stunned on the road 33-31. Christopher Carter, Wayne Gandy, I'm Tyler Feldman. It is getting late, past midnight on the East Coast.
Getting late.
Well, hey, everyone operates at different hours here, Chris. But guys, I want to go back to the defense because that's where the chat is right now. Everyone's concerned about this defense and the answers. They didn't really apply the pressure to Joe Flacco that you would have liked. They didn't get to the quarterback. They didn't stop the run. They didn't stop the pass. Chris is saying they need to make moves and get Minkah Fitzpatrick back from Miami. I would love that, but if you're not able to do that, how do you figure things out against a Green Bay Packers team next Sunday night? Because another national audience, and if you lose that game, you're 4-3, and if there's a lot that could happen, but the Steelers team defensively still has way too many questions.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is right there. There's questions, but I do want to put this out there that, like, well, it's doom and gloom and the season's over and everything is terrible and the Steelers are they're 1-5, they're 1-6 now with this loss. They're at the bottom of the division. There's no hope whatsoever. No, they're 4-2 and 1.5 games up on the division. And yes, this was the missed opportunity to go 5-1 to get 4 games up on the Ravens, and certainly you blew that. But even with the Bengals, let's say the Bengals do correct ship here, and Joe Flacco leads them to some really good plays. You're still a game up and a half on them, and now they come back to Pittsburgh later in the season, where typically the Steelers do play better against the Bengals. I think that the Steelers, when you look at this at where they are right now, you have concerns that that the defense is not going to end up being elite. And this was a week where they could have put a stamp on it and said, we're going to be elite, and they did not do that. They did the opposite in this game. And to me, that's the bigger travesty that's going on. But I do not say it's doom and gloom and the season's done. Wrap it up right now. I still think that there's chance for these guys to grow. I think that there's chances for this for them to figure out some things. Again, we said this earlier in the season when we said the run defense was not going to be able to fix things. The run defense had a rough game today, but that's coming off of 3 straight games where they did their job pretty well. So Terrell Austin said something that stuck with me at training camp, and he said, we have to not let our bad days become bad months. And that's something that happened at the end of last year, was they had a bad day against the Eagles, which turned into a bad game against the Ravens, and a bad day against the Chiefs, and then a bad day against the Bengals. Then all of a sudden, it was a bad month. And Sean, eat it. I don't care. I'm not spinning nothing. I'm telling you what it is. They're 4-2. That's not spin. They're in the first place in the AFC North. I do not care. But this is what I'm talking about, is they have to stop these things from bleeding into future games. We will see if they do so against the Packers. They have a good quarterback. They have an offensive coach that's going to know that this kind of stuff and pick at it. That, to me, is going to be the big determining point. If they turn around and beat the Packers in 10 days, everyone's going to be like, oh, okay, cool, fine. But that's the key here, is not letting this snowball turn into an avalanche.
Chris, I hear you. I guess as a fan, lifelong fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, this is just classic Steelers. This is the current state of the Pittsburgh Steelers, where a decade ago, the Steelers were not losing this kind of football game, but this is where we're at, where you can try to spin it, but it's just still unacceptable in my eyes that this Steelers
Who's saying
team,
it's acceptable?
No one's saying.
That's where we're going crazy here. I'm not saying, oh, this loss is fine. They don't have to improve off of this. I'm saying the sky is not falling. There's two different things here.
Yes. Wayne, can the Steelers figure this out against a very good Green Bay Packers team? Because that scares me now. The defense seemed scared tonight, and now I'm scared to go up against a Packers team in 10 days.
Well, some of this is just the defense taking for granted they were just going to dominate this offense and take away the run game. We talked about just last night, they needed to keep this team one-dimensional on defense. They wanted to take the run away and make them a passing team, put them in 3rd and long. Well, what did they do? They didn't do that. Now, you want to get into the mind of the athlete, sometimes you read clippings. You look over there, oh, they can't run the ball. And then you have to go out there and make them not run the ball. That's just somebody else's stat. Is this something? Green Bay is just the next opponent. This Steeler team is going to beat some teams they shouldn't beat, and they're going to lose to some teams they shouldn't lose to. That's the nature of football. And I think everybody gets the schedule and they go through it in some kind of mental Rolodex and just already determined. I don't know if that's just the gambler in society now. They determine, well, they're not going to beat the Packers. Well, I can tell you this, in 10 days, the team we saw tonight will not show up. There'll be a whole nother team, no another attitude, because there's professional guys over there named TJ Watts. There's professional guys over there, Cam Haywood. Those guys are going to correct that. I have total. That's why they are great players. This is those moments that, you hate them, but they come. Where you don't watch SportsCenter and you sit in the dark at home a lot. This is those times. Boy, 10 days can't go by fast enough. Tonight, what we saw was not what we saw 3 days ago, Sunday night, or, when they played that game. So very fixable things with the talent that's there. Now, will that mean they're going to win? We have to play the game. But I will definitely feel like I'm going to see a different attitude, a different approach. I just saw this kind of lackluster approach defensively, almost like, instead of all of us try to make the play, we're going to, you go make the play. Well, you can't pass the buck in the NFL. We all have to be galvanized to try to make this happen. And we didn't see a galvanized defense really for the first time this season.
I also want to point out that this loss does happen to every team. Like, Steelers fans feel like they are just, we never can beat a bad team. We're always losing to bad teams. Okay, then how do you never have a losing record? And also, let's go and ask the Bills how they're doing right now, because they're coming off a 2-game losing streak. Every team loses to a quote-unquote bad team or loses the game they're not supposed to. Even 10 years ago, as you said, Tyler, they lost to a 5-11 Ravens team down the stretch in the 2015 season in a game that was while they were pushing to try to win the division. Go back to the Cowers years. They always lost to somebody bad. It happens. It's the NFL. It's any given Sunday. It's a real thing. It's not a spin. It's a reality that sometimes these things happen. Doesn't excuse it. Doesn't say you don't have to get better, but you don't say, well, the sky is falling, season's over, pack it up. We are not even trying anymore. This team is doomed to never win another game. That's where I think people are just go way over the top. And that's where the fan comes out. And that's where we as the guys on the show, we are to quell that and be like, hey, let's be reasonable. Same way when they win a game, you got to be like, hey, they did this, but you also got to worry about this over here. They're not superstars yet. I said, even when they were 4-1 last week, I said, they're not the Super Bowl favorites yet. They got to win some games to get in a good position. This is where it's a middle ground. Never get too high, never get too low. And I think that's where a lot of fans are. They were last week way too high. This week they're way too low. We got to keep it right here.
Fans like Sean, who says, I'll eat it, but there's no way to spin it. Just to close the
there's no spin. This is a bad loss, but the team is not doomed to failure. I think that's the point. That is what's being said here.
A lot of comments about Mike Tomlin, of course. A lot of comments about TJ Watt. Where was he tonight? Are those worthy discussion points, since that's where the conversation has gone here tonight? I don't necessarily think the Steelers were outcoached tonight. TJ has kind of been quiet at times, but I feel like he is a main focus for opposing teams to stop him and then get other defensive players involved. What do you guys think?
I mean, if I'm looking at TJ Watt, I am disappointed that he didn't get more than half a sack in this game. That gives him now 4 sacks in 6 games this year. Still not a terrible rate, but you hope that in this game you make a play. Now, he did end up making a big play in a big moment. His sack teamed up with Cam Hayward in that fourth quarter drive was the sack that gave the Steelers the ball back so they could take the lead. But then you hope that he can make the play on the final drive that keeps them out of field goal range so that they do end up winning the game. So I think TJ Watt could have been better. I do think they had a clear game plan. They chipped him a lot. They held him a lot. They did a lot of things to try to make sure it's not there. I think, again, whatever it is, everybody who plays TJ Watt can get away with massive holding and it's just cool. But I think still, you look at this team, you were hoping to get more pressure from guys like Derek Harmon. Cam Hayward got that pressure late and got that half a sack. You wanted to see more from him throughout the game. I think the Bengals were able to do the things because not all their passes, as Wayne was saying, not all their passes were just deep balls. They were hitting slants. They were hitting underneath shots to Chase and Higgins. And that when you hit those types of passes, it negates the pass rush because, and it's kind of like what Myles Garrett said last week. Broderick Jones didn't own Myles Garrett all game, but he did just enough with the Steelers' game plan to make it so that you're not going to be what kills us this week. And that's what the Bengals did. Joe Flacco is a quarterback with a lot of experience. He can easily adjust to a game plan like that. I think that's what's happened there.
I mean, I can't get over, though, Joe, 40+ just shredding the Steelers defense. Wayne, where do you go with that in mind? I feel like that would shake the confidence of a defense.
That Joe Flacco came out and beat you?
Yeah.
No,
Come on
now. Y'all are...
Kirk Herbstreit said on the broadcast that he described Joe Flacco as a unicorn, and I almost fell on the floor. I mean, we're a unicorn. He's a good quarterback, okay? A unicorn, though, come on.
He was having a unicorn performance tonight. He
played a great game, Tyler. That's the one thing. This wasn't
for 26 or 40.
Right.
He just was in a groove, and he has that old, trust me, he just like as a Steeler, I sit here and want to beat the Ravens and everything. Joe Flacco puts on different uniforms, wanting to beat the Steelers from his Raven days. He will always carry that. And then once he realized Jamar, Chase, T. Higgins, and they just got in a groove. He knows how to work the football. He was getting the protection, and that was key for him. that, there's nobody in his face. And Joe can always throw the ball. He's just never been that elusive. And then even when he pulled the ball, you could tell
that was a great decision by him.
That right there, great decision. Pull the ball and go get a first down. He was matching. Here's something, Tyler, you got to realize. You want to match greatness. So quarterbacks try to match each other. Left tackles, right tackles, safeties. You tell me this guy is a great performer, then I'm going to be a great performer for my night. And, everybody came to see Aaron Rodgers. Well, Joe Flacco was like, hey, I wasn't a bad quarterback. Don't just push me in a box like I haven't put work in the NFL. And he just had one of those nights. And he had that from the second half of the last game.
Yep.
And I just think
what we talked about is he went from met to in the first half to those are some scary numbers against a good defense in the second half last week.
I hear both of you, both great points. I still think the word unicorn was ill-advised.
I mean, hey, TV guys are going to TV, they're going to say wild things.
Sure.
But I do think that there's an underappreciation for pros and professionals and guys that do it for as long as they do it. I mean, again, you're saying, man, how can you give up 30 points to a 40-year-old quarterback? Well, the other team also gave up 30 points to a 41-year-old quarterback, and that guy didn't have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to make all the plays. He had to do it with Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith and Darnell Washington. So I don't know if I'm not going to say that Joe Flacco's a unicorn, but we've seen him do this before. I mean, do people forget a couple years ago when he was battling with the Browns and with a Met team there, and he made them all of a sudden competitive again? And I think he even got them to the playoffs. Was it 2023, 2022, one of those years? He's a guy that he knows them. And if there's a team that he knows, it's the Steelers. He's gone up against them time and time again. And I think that's where it comes in there. Now, I think the thing is, will he do this consistently? Because there's times where, as an older quarterback, you have certain tells. Like, for example, they brought up in the Amazon Next Gen part of the broadcast, they pointed out that a lot of those targets to Jamar Chase were to his left. Now that the Steelers can take that into the lab and say, okay, this is what they did to us. This is what we saw them do. Now we have a better plan to counter what they're trying to do with Joe Flacco, because now we actually have tape on how this offense uses him. That will be different to see. But, sometimes you get cooked by a really good player. And I think that's the thing that I think that fans could help themselves if they do more, is tip your hat when another team makes great plays. And Jamar Chase made great plays. Again, that pass to T. Higgins down at the end, it was a perfect throw into tight, really good coverage by Jalen Ramsey and a great catch and run from T. Higgins. Sometimes you got to tip your hat and say, hey, you outplayed me on that one. But as a team, you got to come back and say, all right, next time when they try this, we're gonna have something else ready for him.
Imagine if Joe Flacco had T. Higgins and Jamar Chase a decade ago in Baltimore. That would have been just a disaster for the rest of the division. What
did Ben Bobick say? He said this is the best receivers he's ever had in his career.
Ben Bobick also picked the Bengals to beat the Steelers. He's unfortunately not on the show tonight for us to congratulate him, but we'll congratulate him anyway. And we'll continue our congratulations, I guess, in some form or shape or fashion during the last segment of this show. I do think we need to look at the Steelers' remaining schedule, because I don't know. This is not an easy road for Pittsburgh. It is the NFL, but we're going to look at that next right here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. But first, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drivers feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like their players, they sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Final 15 here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Christopher Carter, Wayne Gandy. I'm Tyler Feldman. Steelers losing on Thursday night, 33-31. The Bengals, led by Joe Flacco, shredding the defense and taking down Blitzburg, which was talked about on Chris's show earlier this week and got me all excited. Hey, this defense is figuring stuff out, only for things to just go entirely south tonight in Cincinnati. Let's look at the remaining schedule for these Pittsburgh Steelers, because the road is not easy. The next 3 games, Green Bay Packers, Indianapolis Colts, Los Angeles Chargers. That is a tough 3-game stretch. Now, the first 2 are at home, on the road against Los Angeles, but then you've got the Bengals, an improving Chicago team. Buffalo, you think at that point in the season, they'll have things figured out. Then you've got the Ravens, Dolphins. Those probably could be wins. Then they traveled to Detroit to take on the Lions, and then have the Browns and the Ravens. So that is a tough stretch. That's why I look at this game, and we may look back at this game this season and say, well, they probably should have won that game. Wayne, when you look at the remaining schedule, I don't want to advance the meter too much here, but I'm a little bit worried about the Steelers team still.
No, I'm not. I'm standing on the idea is week to week, and that's the team that you have. This forecasting going all the way to the end of the season, that you're going with teams as though they're moving in the right direction the whole way. So we're going to go and take on the Packers. Okay, but that's at home. What do the Packers have? We showed tonight we can score. And that was one of the best things tonight. I don't think I'm just as surprised we lost as that we also scored 31 and looked good doing it. This tight end package is evolving. They're learning. Where's Pat Freiermuth been? He's been in the closet, because you basically have 3 of the 4 tight ends are starters on other teams. You're talking about, I have to figure out how to fit. Really, Connor Hayward is the only one that you would say would be regulated to a second tight end kind of idea. These other 3 guys, I got to figure out how to work all of them. Now I'm learning who can block, who can give me that diversity. I mean, tonight, 10 catches, 4 touchdowns from your tight end room. If that ain't something to be beaming about as we move forward and we can run the ball, it's just something against the Packers at home. I just feel like the Packers are going to get a very motivated Steelers team. I do know that, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I really feel we're going to be talking a whole nother scenario once that game takes place. But yes, if we just go by what we think, as they say, what's on paper, then sure, this is a tough road to go. But the Colts, who knew the Colts were going to be this good? There's some things about this whole schedule, and then we know what the Bengals, Bears. I just think the Steelers have a team, as I have said, it's just going to be a week to week. There is no, it's going to morph week to week too. It's going to be a different part of it that dominates and wins the game. I just think defensively, everything is going to snap back as far as effort and assignment and focus.
I love the talk about the tight ends within the Steelers team right now, because that is exciting. But then I think about what Chris said earlier. This Steelers team is predicated on the defense, and the defense isn't there yet. So, Chris, as we look ahead, let's just look to Green Bay. How does the Steelers defense evolve in 10 days to improve, to not let a very talented Packers offense do the same thing that Joe Flacco and the Bengals did tonight in Cincinnati?
Well, I think you come out and you try to win your matchups, with the way that the Packers try to play ball. They don't play the same way as the Bengals. I mean, and very few teams can. I think this further illuminates that, like, a lot of what's made the Bengals, it's not just Joe Burrow. It's that he has the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver in football, and they can carry. And when you look at the receiver room of the Packers, it's not that. It's a rookie Matt Golden. It's Romeo Doubs. It's Dontavian Wicks. Those aren't killers, and so those are matchups that you should dominate. Like maybe not dominate at the cornerback position, but like not get beat up by. And I think that's a unique opportunity. I think this is a very different Packers team compared to compared to the Bengals, but it'll come with its own challenges. And that's not to say, the Packers are worse than the Bengals, because you know what, they have a better defense, and so you might not put up 31 points on them next week. But to me, it's the same thing that you look at when I was talking to Cam Hayward in the locker room after the win over the Jets and the loss to the Seahawks. He said we got to anticipate better, and I think that in the run game, they did not anticipate well what the Bengals were doing in the run game, because the Bengals just never ran the ball, so there wasn't much to go off of. So they said, okay, let's try to take this away. Let's try to take that away. That's going to be and we'll plan on that. And they got hit with some things they weren't used to. That happens. What will determine how good the Steelers actually are is if they are able to turn that around through the rest of the year. Because to me, that's always the big deal, is how do you build on things moving forward? Winning is not a linear thing. Like we think back to some of your favorite Steelers teams. Go back to that 2005 team and tell me that they were linear when they were looking great, and then they lose 3 straight games, and they're terrible in doing so. They get torched up by the Colts, they get torched up by the Bengals, and everyone's like, oh, doom and gloom, the season is over. They're 7-5, they'll never stand a chance. And then they just got hot at the right time, and things worked out for them. Sometimes it's how you learn from your losses that determine how good of a team you actually are. Sometimes it's not the story every season. Every season is different. It's a complex, it's a beautiful game that football is. But that's why I think the sky is falling talk is just way too much right now. And it always is after losses. Just like we're going to the Super Bowl is way too much talk after wins. The bottom line is when you're in this position, you have to say, okay, how do you improve from this? And again, I think a big thing will be next week against the Packers. You'll have your matchups, your things there. But if you're the Steelers and you're looking at your schedule right now, you look at who are the teams that are going to come to town with really talented receivers. The Colts with Michael Pittman and the guys that they put there in the receiver room. That could be tough. You get the Bengals again in basically a month's time at your stadium. You better have a better plan. The Bears with Odunze, with Moore, they've got talent. The Bills, they don't have really talented receivers, but they got Josh Allen. So you're going to get your guys that are really talented coming forward. That's when you got to show that you're better. But again, I think that's what's going to determine who this team is can they get off the mat?
Packers beat the Bengals last week, 27-18. They also lost to the Browns a few weeks ago, 13-10. So, hey, it's anyone's game in the NFL this season. Wayne, do you have any final thoughts on what transpired here tonight in Cincinnati? I know we're all sick to our stomachs, and it's sometimes tough to have these conversations and stay level-headed. I feel like Chris is taking heat in the comments for trying to stay level-headed, but it's always quick reaction after a loss. And obviously there's frustration when you should win the game. That didn't happen. So, Wayne, any final thoughts to send us to bed with better thoughts?
The sky is not falling. It's just dark outside. I'm looking outside
it's
right
now.
It's just dark outside right now, but the sky is not falling. This team, we were just clapping and cheering them on 3-4 days ago. And now, after one defensively pathetic night, everybody has decided that the ship is ready to sink and not even looked at the offense was exploded. They exploded in a loss, but they exploded tonight. I think, as I have said before, keep the same expectations, but we're just going to get to the playoffs a different way. And that different way is going to be beating people in different styles. Some will be who you think. Everybody, the Packers. So everybody's going with the Packers and the Colts. I feel the Steelers will win one of those games, and that's just how it will be. And hopefully it'll satisfy everybody that's telling Chris that the sky is falling.
Chris, the sky isn't falling, right? Wayne just confirmed it wasn't down in Atlanta, but I feel like in Pittsburgh, I feel like it's still there, right?
No, it's very much still there. I'm looking at it right now. I think the bottom line is the adjustments that come along. Like, for example, last year when they got run over by the Eagles in that regular season game, and they did not correct their run defense, or they didn't find answers when they got bulldozed by the Ravens, that was on coaching. Like, that to me was like, hey, you need to find something. And sometimes it's also personnel. Sometimes you don't have the guys to do it, but they needed to be better. They needed to be more aggressive, do something. They did not do that last year. Losing one time isn't to me what kills you as a team or says that you can't do it. It's when you compound the losing, when you let it keep snowball, and then you don't bounce back from it. that's what's going to determine how good of a team or how bad of a team this Steelers team really is. So, and again, I think that there's always this fan propensity, this fanboyness, that this sense of just, I'm going to live off of the moment every second of my life. This dopamine, this like TikTok generation where if I don't have my thing in 5 seconds, I'm going to throw a tantrum. That's not what you should be if you want to be a responsible fan. If you want to be a responsible fan, you say, hey, need to be better here, but you can be better next week. I'm going to show up and root for them when that happens. I think that there's a lot of the former and not as much of the latter. And I think that's where things should be. But hey, we're going to cover that in Locked On Steelers when I'm going over the mismatches, that I saw. And I said, hey, these are the things they absolutely can and must clean up moving forward. Otherwise, teams will exploit them in future games.
All of you still up watching and joining us in this conversation, whether you're a responsible fan or an irresponsible fan, I want you to know that we appreciate you. We love you, and we welcome you back to any future show. Again, preview show every Wednesday, live post-game show after every single Steelers game this season. A reminder, you can listen to the audio of tonight's show on the Locked On Steelers podcast channel, wherever and however you podcast. And Steelers Day should do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe. That helps us out. Also a reminder to check out Christopher Carter on the Locked On Steelers daily podcast, Monday through Friday. Always has great guests, great breakdowns, and the sky never falls when Christopher Carter is talking Steelers football. So that'll do it for this Thursday night football edition of the Steelers Squad Show. It's getting late. I'm mumbling my words, so it's probably time for me to get to bed. For Wayne Gandy, for Christopher Carter, I'm Tyler Feldman saying good night, and here we go. The Steelers fall to the Bengals on Thursday night, 33-31. We will see you again Wednesday on the Squad Show. Until then, take care.